40 million people, the largest urban area on the face of the Earth, and the ground beneath it is going down up to 25 centimeters, 10 full inches, every single year in its hardest hit districts. This is Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia, and it is the fastest sinking megacity on the planet. 40% of the city already sits below sea level. Its northern districts have dropped 2.5 meters, over 8 feet in a single decade. Scientific projections, repeated for years, warn that large parts of northern Jakarta could be underwater by 2050. And the government's answer is now official. They are leaving. On August 17, 2024, Indonesia's Independence Day, the nation formally inaugurated a brand new capital city called Nusantara, carved out of the rainforest of Borneo, more than 1,000 kilometers away from the sinking metropolis. Ministries are relocating. A presidential palace has risen in the jungle. Over $30 billion is committed. It is the first time in the modern era that a nation has begun abandoning its capital city because the ocean is taking it. And here is the arithmetic that tells you what this really is. The new capital is designed to hold about 2 million people by 2045. Jakarta holds 40 million. For every one person with a seat on the lifeboat, 19 are staying on the ship. In the flooded north of the city, there is a mosque that has become the unwilling symbol of all of this, abandoned years ago. Its white walls now standing out in the sea itself, waves washing through the doorways where worshippers once knelt on dry land. The water did not come to the mosque. The land carried the mosque down to the water. This is the story of how the biggest city humanity has ever assembled began swallowing itself, one drinking well at a time, and what happens to 40 million people when the ocean is winning and the government has already ordered the moving trucks. One moment before we wade in, this is the 4th chapter in our series on humanity's war with the sea. Dubai built land out of the ocean, Japan is jacking an airport above it, and today a nation is retreating from it. If you want the whole saga, the subscribe button makes you part of it. One tap, and every new chapter finds you. All right, boots on. Let me show you how a city drinks itself into the sea. Here is the first thing to understand about Jakarta, and it separates this story from every other chapter in this series. Dubai's islands sink because dredged sand compresses. Kansai sinks because deep clay yields underweight. Jakarta is different. Jakarta is sinking mostly because of what its own people are forced to pull out of the ground every single day. The city was born in the wrong place by the standards of permanence, a swampy river delta on the coast of Java where 13 rivers braid their way to the sea through soft young sediment. The Dutch colonizers who built the old port city laid out canals as if it were Amsterdam in the tropics, and for 3 centuries the settlement grew on that spongy foundation the way most delta cities do, carefully and low. Then came the late 20th century and Jakarta did not grow. It detonated. Millions upon millions of people poured in from across the archipelago, and the metropolis sprawled into the largest urban agglomeration our species has ever produced. And all of those people needed water. This is where the story turns, because Jakarta's piped water system, to this day, reaches only around 70% of the city, and far less in the poorer districts. So for decades, households, businesses, factories, hotels, even office towers have done the only thing available to them. They drilled. Millions of wells, legal and illegal, punched down into the aquifers beneath the city, the ancient layers of water-saturated sediment that sit under the delta like a series of full sponges. Every day, an entire metropolis drinks from the ground it is standing on. Now picture what that does. A saturated aquifer is like an inflated air mattress. The water inside it literally holds the sediment structure up. Pump the water out faster than the rains can refill it, and the mattress deflates. The sediment grains collapse into the spaces the water used to occupy. The ground above does not crack or crumble. It simply descends silently, evenly, remorselessly, carrying every road, every home, every mosque and market and skyscraper down with it. Add the weight of a booming skyline pressing down from above and subtract nothing, because unlike Osaka's clay, a drained aquifer never rebounds. The descent is permanent, and the cruelest part of the mechanism is that everyone participating in it is behaving completely rational. The family in a kampung drilling a shallow well is not committing sabotage. They are getting drinking water for their children in a district the pipes never reached. The hotel, sinking a deep bore, is cutting costs in a city where municipal supply is unreliable. The factory, the mall, the apartment block, each straw in the ground is an individually sensible decision. And 40 million individually sensible decisions add up to a city consuming its own foundation. Engineers have a name for this shape of tragedy, and Jakarta is now its largest demonstration in human history. Everyone drinks, so everyone sinks. The government has tried to close the tap from above. Bans on groundwater extraction for large buildings went on the books years ago and were tightened again recently, but regulators themselves concede enforcement is thin. You cannot criminalize thirst. Until the pipes arrive, the straws stay in. The official measurements tell you the scale. Across the city, the average sink rate has run around 6 centimeters a year, already dozens of times faster than Venice, the city the world thinks of when it hears the word sinking, which descends 1 to 2 millimeters in a good year. But averages hide the horror. In the northern coastal districts, where the sediment is youngest and the wells are thirstiest, the rates have hit 15, 20, 25 centimeters a year, 10 inches, annually. There are neighborhoods in North Jakarta that are more than 8 feet lower today than they were when their residents' children were born. The city is not drifting toward the sea. In its north, it is diving. So what does it actually look like when the largest city on Earth loses 8 feet of elevation in a decade? It looks like a place where the fundamental promise of solid ground has quietly expired. Walk through the kampungs, the dense working-class neighborhoods of North Jakarta, and the evidence surrounds you at eye level. Houses whose ground floors have descended below the level of the street outside, their owners building doorstep dams and stairs that lead down into their own front rooms. Buildings tilting into each other as the ground drops unevenly beneath them. Floors re-poured every few years, each new layer of concrete a fresh attempt to climb back above the water table. Residents describe raising their floors again and again until the ceiling closes in overhead, their houses effectively sinking around them while the roofline stays put. And at the shoreline stands the image that has traveled around the world, the abandoned mosque of North Jakarta standing alone out in the sea. It was built on land, nobody moved it. The coast simply retreated past it as the ground fell away, and now the tide flows through its empty doorways, a white ghost in the gray water, marking where the city's edge used to be. It is one of the most honest monuments on Earth, not a memorial anyone designed, just the sea filing its paperwork. Now put yourself inside this for 1 minute, because statistics cannot carry it. Imagine the house your grandfather built. Solid ground, a proper street, the sea a comfortable walk away. Over your lifetime, the street outside creeps upward. Not because anyone raised it, but because your plot keeps going down. You pour a new floor. 5 years later, another. Your front door becomes a step down, then a staircase down. During the wet season, you stack sandbags at a doorway your grandmother once swept dry. And 1 year, you realize the concrete wall at the end of your street is no longer holding back a distant sea at high tide. The water on the far side of it stands above the level of your kitchen table. Nothing dramatic ever happened. No storm took the house. The ground simply left, 10 inches at a time, and took your family's entire idea of permanence with it. Multiply that house by millions, and you have North Jakarta. The water does not always wait politely either. Jakarta is a city of catastrophic floods. The Great Deluge of 2007 killed dozens and drove hundreds of thousands from their homes, and versions of it return again and again. Monsoon rains that the sunken drainage can no longer shed, rivers that now sit above the neighborhoods they flow through, and seawalls along the coast that must be raised and raised and raised again as the land behind them keeps descending. In parts of North Jakarta, the ocean at high tide stands higher than the streets, held back by aging concrete, 10 inches closer every year. And here is the detail that reveals how far past normal this city already is. Large sections of North Jakarta no longer drain by gravity at all. They cannot. The land sits below the sea and below its own rivers. These districts survive as polders, Dutch-style basins walled off from the water around them, kept dry by pumping stations that run around the clock, lifting rainwater and river water up and over the defenses into the bay. Think about what that means for the millions living inside them. Their neighborhoods exist at the pleasure of machinery. A power failure during a monsoon downpour is not an inconvenience, it is the basin filling. Residents of these districts live, in the most literal sense, below the waterline of their own city, in rooms that stay dry only because somewhere nearby a pump did not stop last night. The great deltas of Europe took centuries to learn this way of life. North Jakarta was forced into it within a single generation, and its floor is still dropping. And here is the detail that makes Jakarta the most uncomfortable chapter of this series. The descent is not shared equally. The wealthy districts of the city rise on deep-piled towers, drink piped and bottled water, and watch the flood warnings from 30 floors up. The sinking is fastest, the floods deepest, and the wells most essential exactly where the poorest tens of millions live. The people least responsible for the city's water arithmetic and least able to leave are the ones the ground is disappearing under fastest. Keep that in mind for what comes next, because when the government finally announced its grand solutions, you will notice immediately who they were designed to save. Faced with the fastest sinking megacity on Earth, Indonesia produced not one plan, but two. One to defend the city, one to leave it. Watch closely which one got the palace. The defense is called the Giant Seawall on the master plans, the National Capital Integrated Coastal Development, and in the press, the Great Garuda, because the full design traces the shape of Indonesia's mythical national bird across Jakarta Bay. An outer seawall roughly 32 kilometers long, a chain of 17 artificial islands, and an enormous coastal reservoir, with price tags that have run to $40 billion and beyond. It is Dubai-scale geoengineering, except pointed defensively, a shield instead of a trophy. And notice the strange full circle inside that design, because you have seen these ingredients before in this series. 17 artificial islands dredged and raised in a shallow bay, a giant barrier holding back the sea. Land reclamation as national statement. It is the Dubai playbook, the Palms breakwater, the world's islands repurposed from luxury into life support. The difference is the stakes. Dubai reclaimed land to sell beachfront to billionaires. Jakarta must reclaim land to keep 10 million of its poorest citizens from being permanently flooded. Same tools. Opposite ends of the human ledger. Work on intercoastal walls began back in 2014, and then the project did what mega projects in sinking cities do. It slowed, stalled, fragmented, and slipped, tangled in lawsuits from fishing communities whose livelihoods the islands would bury, environmental battles over what a sealed bay does to 13 rivers worth of pollution, financing gaps as budgets went elsewhere, and the ordinary gravity of political change. The completion horizon drifted years into the future, to 2030 and beyond, while the city it was meant to shield kept descending 10 inches a year. Recently, the national government even asked Jakarta to pay half of what remains, the president's reasoning. Quoted plainly in the press, this project is actually for Jakarta. Sit with that sentence. The capital of the nation, being told its own flood defense, is a local expense. But the deepest problem with the wall is not the money, it is the physics, and Indonesian scientists have said it out loud for years. A seawall built on the same collapsing delta sediment as the city will do exactly what the city does. As one of Indonesia's leading earth scientists put it, building the wall is inevitable because the flood is already here, but over time the wall itself will sink and the flood will come again. The shield inherits the disease. Even the defense is standing on the same emptying air mattress as everything it defends. And there is a second flaw the engineers whisper about. A sealed bay must pump out everything 13 rivers deliver, forever. The Great Garuda would turn Jakarta Bay into the largest managed bathtub on Earth, its pumps running against gravity every hour of every day for the rest of the city's existence. Miss the electricity bill and the bathtub fills. Meanwhile, the one measure every hydrologist agrees would actually slow the sinking, genuinely ending deep groundwater extraction remains half-fought. Bans on big buildings drilling wells exist on paper and were even extended recently, but enforcement is thin, because you cannot ban 40 million people from water you have not piped to them. The cause keeps running while the cure waits on plumbing. And then there is the second plan, the exit. In 1919, Indonesia's president announced that the republic would do something no modern nation had done for this reason: move its capital away from the sea that was taking it. The chosen site deep in East Kalimantan, on the island of Borneo, more than 1,000 kilometers from Jakarta. The name Nusantara, the vision, a gleaming green, renewable-powered forest capital built from absolute zero. Construction began in 2022. Billions were spent within 2 years. And on August 17, 2024, the nation's Independence Day, with all the symbolism that date could carry, Nusantara was officially inaugurated as the capital of Indonesia, its half-finished presidential palace hosting flag ceremonies while cranes turned overhead. Visit the site through the reporting of those who have been there, and the picture is genuinely surreal. A presidential palace shaped like the national eagle, wings spread across a hilltop that was rainforest 5 years ago. Government towers rising from red clay clearings, wide empty boulevards laid out for a population that has not arrived, civil servants reportedly reluctant to relocate 1,000 kilometers from their families, schools, and lives, some ministries shuttling staff in and out rather than moving them. 14,000 hectares of forest cleared so far in one of the last strongholds of the orangutan, with environmental groups tallying the cost in habitat while the government tallies progress in ribbon cuttings. And over all of it, the question international correspondents keep filing home: the money. Nearly $5 billion of state funds spent by 2024, private investment slower than hoped. Timelines stretching to 2045, and each change in political weather bringing fresh doubt about how hard the new administration will keep pushing a predecessor's monument. Nusantara is real. It is also, in the words of reporting from the ground, an enormous promise and an enormous question. But set every doubt aside and take the plan entirely at its word, because the arithmetic is damning enough on its own. Nusantara, fully realized, houses about 2 million people. Greater Jakarta holds 40 million. The government, the ministries, the civil servants, the elite, they get the new city on high ground. The other 38 million get the wall that is late, over budget, locally invoiced, and by its own country's scientists, sinking. That is not a relocation, that is triage. The title of this video is not a metaphor, it is the policy. Now step back and see where this chapter sits in the series, because Jakarta completes a pattern. In Dubai, humanity built new land out of the sea, and the sea began collecting it back. In Osaka, humanity built an island and stood its ground, publishing every centimeter of the descent, jacking the terminal level, raising the walls, paying forever. And in Jakarta, for the first time in the modern story of our species, a nation looked at the water, looked at the ledger, and retreated. 3 coastal giants, 3 strategies: attack, defend, withdraw. The ocean did not change tactics once. It never has to. And understand what makes Jakarta the chapter that should stay with you after the screen goes dark. Dubai's sinking sand endangers the portfolios of billionaires. Kansai's descent is a solvable line item for one of the richest nations alive. Jakarta is 40 million human beings, the single largest gathering of people in the history of our species, on ground that drops 10 inches a year, in a story where the lifeboat seats 2 million. The world's coastal megacities are watching this experiment with the discomfort of patients reading a diagnosis. Bangkok sinking on its own drained delta, its government already commissioning studies on moving. Lagos, Africa's giant, losing its shoreline while its population explodes. Alexandria, watching the Nile Delta subside beneath 5,000 years of history. Dhaka, Manila, Ho Chi Minh City, each a compressed version of the same recipe. Soft delta ground, explosive growth, unpiped water, drilling millions of straws into their own foundations. Even wealthy Houston and New Orleans are measurably settling. Add them together and hundreds of millions of people live on coastal ground that is going down while the sea comes up, and every single one of their governments will eventually face Jakarta's exact 3 doors. Pay forever like Osaka, build the wall that itself sinks, or load the trucks. Jakarta is not an outlier. Jakarta is simply first. The first modern capital to be measurably lost to the arithmetic of ground and water, and the first government to answer that arithmetic with moving trucks. Maybe Nusantara becomes a masterpiece, a green capital in the forest that history calls an act of visionary foresight. Maybe the Great Garuda gets finished, holds the bay, and buys North Jakarta its century. Both things could still happen. Indonesia is a nation of 280 million people that has defied predictions before. But the mosque is already in the sea. The north is already 8 feet down. The wells are still running tonight because the pipes still are not there. And 10 inches from now, 1 year, every number in this video will need updating in the same direction. So the verdict is yours, and this one is heavier than usual. Indonesia's exit Is it the wisest infrastructure decision of the century, a government reading the physics honestly and refusing to pour trillions into an unwinnable siege? Or is it the moment a modern state formally surrendered its greatest city and 38 million of its own people to the ocean? And the question underneath, the one I want your honest answer to: if the ground beneath your home was dropping 10 inches a year, would you stand and fight like Osaka or load the trucks like Jakarta? The comments are open and every answer gets read.